Hello there guys, RMP792 here. So we are up to Star Trek Discovery Season 2 Episode 10, The Red Angel. Sorry this one's a little bit late. I didn't have an opportunity over the last couple of days to record. And I'll warn you now, next week's is going to be a bit late because the parents are away and I watch Discovery with them. And yeah, so you might end up getting the last two episodes of the season in one big vlog, or something like that. I haven't quite decided how I'm going to handle that yet. But in lieu of that, I've got a potential sort of ongoing series thing worked out. So I'll try and get the first one or two of those up early next week, and the Discovery vlog will come along when it does. Sorry about that, but these things happen. So. The Red Angel. We now know who is in the Red Angel suit. And it's not Michael. It is her mother. Okay, here's the thing. I'll freely admit, I didn't see that coming. That doesn't make it a good twist. Because when my response to a twist is, oh my god, that was a good twist. When my response to a twist is, Jesus, not so good. One of the big problems that this show has had, sorry about that, has been a focus on Michael to its detriment. As I like pointing out, Star Trek works at its absolute best as an ensemble show. And one of the big problems that Enterprise as a show had was that it focused far too much on three characters. Sorry, I'm getting messages at the same time that pinging up on the top of the screen. But anyway, one of the problems Enterprise had was it focused too much on Trip, T'Pol, and Archer, and the secondary cast ended up feeling neglected. Discovery has that problem, but even worse, because it's focusing too much on one character at the expense of everybody else. Which is a pity, because most of the supporting cast I like, and in a lot of ways, Michael's kind of the least interesting thing about this show. And the thing is, I don't really dislike her, but the amount of focus she's given is detracting from her in this weird way, because rather than focus on making a really interesting, likable character, they keep piling more and more twists onto her backstory, which weirdly makes her less compelling and less interesting. It feels like the universe revolves around her rather than her being part of it. This weirdly is a similar problem to what happened to Seven of Nine on Voyager, in that Seven of Nine was undoubtedly, Seven of Nine and the Doctor were basically the two breakout stars of Voyager in a lot of ways. They were the two characters that really kind of connected with the audience. And later on, Seven of Nine in particular began to overshadow the rest of the cast. Rob Beltran in particular was fairly vocal about the fact he felt that Chakotay in particular was just getting completely screwed over by having absolutely nothing of interest to do. And yeah, can you remember anything interesting Chakotay did that wasn't, stereotypical Native American stuff that was written by a white guy? Yeah, the answer to that is no. And this show kind of has the same problem. In many ways, Michael is one of the least interesting people on the crew, and the fact that the show is so focused around her is to its detriment. And again, that's not the fault of the actress, and it's not even really the writing in the individual episodes. The problem is that the show itself keeps trying to focus on her, and I think that's to its detriment. The episode that focused on Saru, great episode. Loved seeing more focus on Saru. Elements of Pike. Pike has been really good this season. I have enjoyed Pike as the captain. But part of that is tempered by the fact that I know he pretty much has to leave at the end of this season, and go back to commanding the Enterprise. Spock, the scenes where Spock is talking to anyone other than her, I enjoy. But again, because of the way they've retconned and backfilled, his backstory and her backstory, those scenes just aren't as enjoyable to me. So that Stamets. Stamets is a great character. I like seeing Stamets. He's a dick, but he's a dick in a way that's really enjoyable. Somebody's going to take that line out of context, but you know what I mean. His relationship with Culver, as I say, in season 1, I really enjoyed, and I'm genuinely curious to see how they handle that going forward. And there was a little bit of that in this episode. And honestly, that kind of sums up this episode, the phrase, there was a little bit of that in this episode. Because this was very much an episode of lots and lots of small bits rather than one overarching thing. The theoretical main plot was on capturing the Red Angel, but what it was really about was getting everybody and everything in place for what I'm assuming will be effectively the big finale. Because I think there's only 2 more episodes left. Let me just double check. IMDb is your friend. Nope. 4 more episodes. So the next one is Perpetual Infinity, and we don't know the titles of the last 3. But, so it feels more like setup than a main story. And I think... Michael very much overshadows the rest of the crew, which I'm not a fan of. As I say, I like my Star Trek to be an ensemble show. And that means actually I really enjoy it when it focuses on the less characters. And, as I say, Pike has been a lot of fun this season. Saru is a really interesting character. Tilly, I love Tilly. Tilly's great. Stamets is great. The engineer they picked up, who turned up in 1 episode, and I thought, okay, she's not going to turn up again, but she was a nice one-off character. And then she turned up again in 1 more episode, and I was like, oh, okay, she's still in the Discovery. She's great. She was fun. And then she hasn't turned up again since. And I'm like, you create this great character, and now you're not using it. What the hell, guys? My hands are doing weird things, but what the hell, guys? That seems like a complete waste. So I'm hoping she turns up a bit more. Who else? Ash. Here's the thing. Ash's problem as a character is that he's a grumpy, mopey misery guts. And that's as a result of the fact that everybody hates him. And honestly, scene I want to see. Ash talking to Tilly. That's it. That's all I want in a particular scene. Because here's the thing. We've seen from the end of the previous season, or near the end of the previous season, Tilly was pretty much the first person to go back over to Ash after, when he was sitting alone and everybody was kind of, giving him the dirty look. And that kind of gravitated the crew towards him. I don't think they've shared much dialogue at all this season. And honestly, having Tilly be the one to start to build a bridge between him and the rest of the crew, I think could be really, really good. Because again, Star Trek works really well when it's going full Rainbow Coalition of we are better, stronger, wiser together. And Tilly starting to build that bridge because she is a genuinely trusting, caring, loving person who sees the good in him. Yeah, I think that could be a really interesting dynamic for the pair of them to have. Where she is the one to reach out the hand and say, I trust you. And that could actually let him grow as a character. And this episode, he and Michael, I can't remember if they actually kissed or if they just got really damn close to it, but immediately I was like, Christ, not this again. And again, the Ash-Michael relationship was one of the less interesting things in the last season. And again, that's not the fault of the actors. Now, again, the actors in this show are really good. And they are acting the bejesus out of these parts. It's just the overall direction that's focused on one particular person, I think, is a fundamental flaw in the show. And they moved to correct it significantly. This season has not been as bad. But but again, as soon as at the beginning of the episode when they said, "Oh, we found out who's in the Red Angel suit, and it's you, Michael," and I was like, bugger. I'll be honest, I should have realised then and there that was going to be a red herring, because if it was actually Michael in the suit, we would have got her big shocking reveal at the end where she is inside the armor. So I should have figured out immediately that was a red herring. But I'd been assuming they were going to go with that most boring of options right from the get go. So I got lulled into a false sense of security on that one. You got me. And they figure out that the reason the Red Angel keeps appearing in certain places rather than others is because it has to keep Michael's ass alive, which they assume is for effectively the grandfather paradox. So if she dies when she's younger, she won't exist to become the Red Angel. There is also, and whereas the real reason basically turns out, it's a mother desperately trying to save her daughter's life. Okay, but backfilling her backstory at this point so that her parents were secretly working for Section 31 on super secret time travel technology. Ugh. I don't like it when they backfill parents' backstories to be super secret stuff. It's always annoying. I mean, they did it in Spider-Man. It was the Amazing Spider-Man, where it was Richard Parker, some sort of super secret spy working on secret spider research, and it's just like, no, this makes your character less interesting, not more. And doing it here, I am not a fan of. And my other fundamental problem here is that suit is way too advanced for this time period. Again, this is a problem with this being a prequel, because that's the tech in that suit, to enable it to time travel the way it does, would have to be more... I mean, let's face it, the Borg of the 24th century use a sphere when they time travel. So their time travel machine is obviously pretty damn big. And Section 31 with technology from 100 years prior that even and the Federation doesn't have time travel technology in 1,000 years, in 100 years. They were able to build a working time machine that's small enough to be worn on a suit. No. Okay, here's the thing. I'm going to quote SF Debris on this one, because if you're not watching SF Debris stuff, he's really good. He's a lot better at this than I am. Because for one thing, he actually writes stuff down and plans ahead, and I just waffle. But his quote is, "Be consistent with your nonsense." Because here's the thing, I fully appreciate science fiction is inherently silly. I'm fine with that. There are a lot of people who insist on taking sci-fi really, really, really seriously. It's like, again, I'm a big fan of Warhammer 40k, for example, and there's lots of people who insist on taking that incredibly seriously because it's grimdark and... To which my response is, guys, it's a fundamentally ridiculous universe. That's what's fun about it. The silly, over-the-top ridiculousness where ludicrous things can happen. That's where the fun comes from. And Star Trek is much the same. However, once you have established a set of rules, you do need to stick to them to a certain extent. Or you have to make the breaking of them a major deal. So for example, Star Trek established quite a long time ago, and it was a major part of an episode, that you can't beam through shields. So later on, when they just randomly do beam through shields, that is a problem. It's not something minor like, in one episode they mentioned that the Enterprise has 12 decks, and in another they mention that it's got 14. That's irrelevant. That's goofy continuity stuff that nobody really gives a toss about. But if it's important to the story, then it matters. And I appreciate this might sound a little contradictory, but again, consistency in your nonsense is the best way to describe it. And we've established time travel technology in Star Trek before. We've established its limits and various other things. And again, in Enterprise, they keep getting visited by a guy from the 29th century. And his time travel technology is way, way in advance. That's fine, because he's from the distant future. Whereas, in TOS, whenever they wanted to time travel, they had to do it by flying the ship around a sun to achieve some sort of super warp thing. And again, complete scientific nonsense, totally ridiculous. But it was consistent, and that's all I care, and that's all I really need it to be. And again, you can retcon and backfill this stuff, but it's just not very satisfying when that happens. So again, the beaming through shields thing, you know, later on there is a enemy who can beam through their shields, and they actually do make a big thing of it. It's like, wait a minute, we had the shields up. How is it possible that they did that? And again, they came up with some sciencey technobabble reason why the enemy could beam through their shields, and how they could prevent it in the future, and that made that particular enemy more threatening. Or in once they've got the NCC 1701E, the Sovereign class ship from First Contact onwards, they actually established that its shield emitters are deliberately designed in 6 groups, so that you can actually raise one or several of them without necessarily raising all of them. So, for example, if you turn the ship so that its top section is facing towards the enemy, you can lower the shields on the lower half of the ship, and you can beam through that. So if you've got a ship coming in and there's a planet below, you can go through there, lower the bottom half of the shields, beam up your people from the planet, and then keep going, and then put the shields back up without having to lower them completely. And again, that's a design modification that makes sense within the universe, makes sense within established lore and canon, while also advancing their capabilities. And that's what I like. If you've not read the Honor Harrington books, I would strongly recommend them. And one of the things that I really like that the author David Weber does is he's really good at advancing their technology in ways that make logical sense. So he establishes what they currently have in the first book, and then in subsequent books it's things like, oh well, we've figured out that if we do this, we can make this modification, and a lot of the time it's not so much making grand, amazing technological leaps like Starfleet does. It's, we have this thing, if we make it a bit better and a bit smaller, we can combine it with this other thing we have. So in the first book, for example, it's established that they have a drive technology based on manipulating gravity, and that they can detect gravity, at gravity manipulation at faster than light speeds. So by the time of the second book, they've come up with a smaller version of their gravity manipulation devices that actually let them send gravitic pulses that can be detected at faster than light speeds, which allows them to basically send effectively primitive Morse code messages at FTL speeds, which is technology nobody else has. And over the course of the books, the technology they have advances and advances and advances, and but it's all based on the same fundamental design principles. It's, if we can manipulate gravity, here's what we can do with it. And we can get this, we can make this smaller and more efficient. And so we can, and if we make the scanners that pick it up more efficient and the thing that's generating it more efficient, we can go from Morse code to, really, really fast Morse code to eventually the point where you can send actual audio transmission, to the point where you can send full-on video transmission. And again, it's all logical step-by-step stuff that really makes a lot of sense. This suit doesn't. This suit has been pulled straight out of a writer's arse. And it's, I'd say, it's just fundamentally too advanced. If it was a case of, say, the suit is some sort of protective suit that anchors the person and allows them to be pulled back, and yet their time machine is freaking huge. And again, we've seen a really big time machine, because in the season 4 premiere of Enterprise, which is set on Earth during an alternate version of the Second World War, there's a bunch of aliens who are working with the Nazis and have conned them into helping them build a time machine. But because they're having to build it with 40s tech, it's 40 miles long. It's ridiculously large. So if Section 31's time machine was, well, again, I've been watching some 60s sci-fi recently, so I've been rewatching a show. I've been watching a show called The Time Tunnel, which was made about the same time as the original TOS. So that sort of era. And yeah, their time machine is huge. It's in a massive complex. So if it was a case of that was their time machine, and the suit was just something to protect and keep a lock on the time traveling individual, that I wouldn't have a problem with. But the implication is that the suit itself is the thing that's allowing travel through time, and nope. So yeah, I feel like I've ranted quite a bit about this, but honestly, this episode's kind of weird because, as I said, this episode's very bitty. There's not a lot of through narrative to really talk about, because this episode's mostly filled with kind of smallish characterish moments. So you've got Cornwell and the Section 31 guys, and wow, that whole plot line where they're on the run from the Federation, that lasted a long time. Seriously, what was the point of that? It did nothing. You could have dropped that element completely and lost nothing, because immediately, they declared that they were going to have to go on the run from the Federation. Next episode, Admiral Cornwall turns up and is like, well, you're sort of on the run from the Federation, but I need you to do this sneaky job. And then the next episode, they've been exonerated. Yeah. So yeah, that was pointless. That was incredibly pointless. That was a tease for absolutely nothing, and nothing came of it. So, yeah. But yeah. So that annoyed me. And yeah, so what the hell else happened at this episode? As I say, we had Ash and Michael potentially reigniting their relationship in some way, which we had Spock and Michael, having a bit of coming to an understanding, which, yeah, again, nice scene. The actors were going for gold, and the writing was fine. But again, it's the whole backfilled Spock backstory that just doesn't satisfy me. And again, the show having effectively changed showrunners, I don't know whose idea it was for Michael to be Spock's adopted brother. Whoever it was a mistake. That's that. I'm not going to keep harping on about this, but yeah, that was a fundamental flaw in the show right from day one. And there's no amount of course correcting they can do now that will fix it, I don't think. So I don't honestly know what the solution is there. I don't think there is a good one. What else? We had a little bit of Stamets and Culver. Stamets and Culver coming to a little bit of an understanding, and I can't remember which one of them was it. Was it Culver? I think it was Culver who went to go see the Admiral, because again, the Admiral is, she was a psychiatrist or a psychologist or a counsellor. Yeah, that's established as what her specialty was prior to her becoming an Admiral, which is fair enough. And they have a conversation, and it helps a bit. And again, there's some good individual scenes in this episode, but there's just enough in this episode that kind of knocks me off that I can't get past it. So it was a very mixed bag of an episode. Airiam's funeral at the start, yeah, that was a good scene. It might have actually been effective if Airiam had been established more prior to her death. And again, not the fault of this individual episode, but a problem that Discovery's going to have to deal with. So yeah, I'm kind of blanking on what the hell else happened in this episode. So they basically figure out that the best way to get Michael to get the Red Angel to turn up into their trap is to kill Michael. And so yeah, they do it in a slightly overcomplicated way, but fair enough. So the Red Angel turns up and saves her, and they capture it, and then of course they get the reveal of it's Michael's mother. And earlier in the scene, we found out what was going on with Michael and I can't remember his name. The current Section 31 section chief. Where she breaks his nose, which fair enough. And he's clearly been either infected by the AI or just stabbed in the eyeball. Side note, why on earth does your retina scanner have a spiky thing in it? Also, why do you need a retina scanner to overload the safety protocols? Because that's never been a thing on Star Trek before. Just curious. And why is it in a separate room? You think if you need to override the safety protocols on something like that, you'd just do it from the bridge. See, this is why you shouldn't trust spies to design anything. They overcomplicate the security measures and don't think about actually practically using it. But yeah, so that's what's going on there. And yes, and we get the big reveal of how he screwed over her parents. And yeah, they were working for Section 31, and they stole a time crystal from from the Klingons to make their time machine work. And again, where did these time crystals keep coming from? Because Mud had one, and now they've got another one, and just so yeah, as I, it's all the time travel tech that doesn't work for me, or their explanation of where it comes from. Again, okay, if you want to keep the connection to Michael, but without making this cliche and ridiculous, descendant. Like 30, 40 generations down the line. So, make it a descendant from like the 2700s. That's all you needed to do. So it has to keep Michael alive because, without Michael, they will never be born. But, that also lets their technology make sense and also keeps them far enough removed that there doesn't necessarily have to be, some deep personal connection to her. That also lets you, again, one of the minor elements that was mentioned in Enterprise that I really like is the fact that the character of Daniels, the time traveler from the future, is not human. Or correction, he's like mostly human. But he's got some Vulcan DNA in there, he's got some Andorian DNA in there, he's got a bunch of DNA that Phlox doesn't even recognize. And again, Starfleet is a shameless rainbow coalition. It's, we are stronger together. That's kind of the entire shtick of the show. So again, that could be an interesting thing to take it. Or hell, if you want to tease the potential, Ash Voq relationship with Michael thing, said descendant has a little bit of Klingon DNA, in there. And the question is that coming from him, or did that get introduced somewhere else later, or because again, we know that Klingons and humans can crossbreed. Side note, there is an in-canon explanation for how the hell that is possible. Go watch a TNG episode called The Chase. It's amazing the fact that you want to talk about backfilling lore. That is amazing. But yeah. So yeah, overall this was it wasn't a bad episode, but it felt like maneuvering people into places they need to be for the big events that are coming up, rather than actually trying to tell its own interesting story. And the elements of the main story that there were just kind of infuriated me. So, very mixed bag of an episode, I'm afraid. So yeah, I think that's all I've got, because I don't want to go on another extended tech rant. So, as I say, I'm not 100% sure when the next... Oh, no. I'll do my level best to get a vlog out Monday and Tuesday. I've got a new thing I'm planning to talk about. And you'll see what that is then. And yeah, so and the next Discovery one probably won't be until tail end of next week at the earliest. I'm not 100% sure. But yeah. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in future videos.